Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee, July 16th, 2025. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and first we will just have a moment of reflection, please. And thank you very much. I'm going to ask if anyone has any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof they would like to disclose at this point on today's agenda. And seeing nothing, move to public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting by contacting clerk at meaford.ca or 519-538-1060 extension 1110. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. And Sue, I don't believe we have any presentations under the public participation section or deputations therein. So in that case, we will move to the approval of the minutes. I'm presuming everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes that were in the agenda package. And I will recommend that the minutes of the May 21st, 2025 meeting of the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee be approved as presented. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Kelly and Reed, thank you very much. Are there any comments, questions, errors, omissions, corrections, etc.? Seeing nothing, all in favor to accept the minutes? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Moving to items for information. And today we have a presentation by the STA Advocacy Group. So I'm going to welcome Brianna and Nick to go to the podium, and we'll pull up your presentation on the screens here. Good catch.
Okay, we're back. Got it. Hey. Well, firstly, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and share a little bit about what we're doing. As mentioned, I'm Brianna, this is my husband, Nick, and we own a cottage here in the community, Skipping Rock Cottages, and have done for the last few years now. We are a part of a group that was formed centered around some of the bylaw discussions, and we've come together. They're a group of 6 short-term accommodation owners who have been working together. And now we have a Facebook group of over 100 short-term accommodation owners in the community. And our job really centers around promoting tourism, promoting our local businesses, and also responsible short-term accommodation management. So we're excited to be here to tell you a little bit about what we feel we contribute to the economy. And we have some ideas that we're already working on to help grow the economy in the area. So I hope this is just a picture of our group, and it outlines some of our mission. And I will just move to the next slide here, where we have put together a little deck highlighting what we feel represents an estimate on the number of short-term accommodations in Meaford, but also we've done a little comparison to the Blue Mountains.
Yeah, so just to take you through the data we've been able to pull. So most of the sources of data for this come from AirDNA, which is an online tool that can be used to scrub Airbnb and VRBO data to try to pull as much data together as possible. It also has other accommodation types data as well. So from our own kind of research, we've pulled together the data here. Starting on the left-hand side, the motels in Meaford, we believe there are 3 with a total of, I believe, 49 bedrooms there, and mostly utilized by those working in the municipality or close by. And we weren't able to get motel data for the Blue Mountains, but I think that that data is probably included within the hotel section that we were able to get some data on as well. At this point in time, there's no hotels in Meaford, although I know there's been approval for one that will be opening on Boucher Street, totaling 78 units in the next couple of years, I think, as well, which is quite exciting. In the Blue Mountains, we know there are many hotels there. We believe from the data we've been able to pull, there's 1,000 units or 1,000 kind of rooms or suites available in the Blue Mountain within hotels. Some of those have multiple bedrooms as well. So we estimate there's a total between 1,500 and 2,000 bedrooms available in hotels in the Blue Mountains. Of STAs in Meaford, from the data we've been able to pull, there are a total of 217 at about 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
And of those, 146 are currently shown as active. And that is an important distinction because I think some may be seasonal, some may be not operating all year round. So we're trying to get the best possible data to do this analysis today as well. So it showed that there are 146 active at this point in time, ranging from 1-bedroom apartments or units to 8-bedroom cottages. And so compared to the Blue Mountains, there's 988 that were listed, of which 686 were shown as being active at the point in time we pulled the data as well. Again, ranging from the 1 beds right up to 8, possibly even larger as well. So a good range of accommodation sizes as well. In terms of estimated bedrooms in Meaford, so we're trying to pull all of that data together, including both the motels, the hotels, and the short-term accommodations. We kind of estimated there are around 487 rooms within Meaford at any point in time from the active listings. So that's using the 146 compared to the Blue Mountains, where we're estimating there's around 3,800 bedrooms in the Blue Mountains, combining the hotel accommodations and the short term as well. So just showing nearly a 700% higher or more capacity in the Blue Mountains than in Meaford as well. So that just kind of showed, obviously very different municipalities growing up, and I'm not sure Meaford wants to be the Blue Mountains, but I just showing the differences in terms of the availability of accommodations for people to stay, and the kind of role that short-term accommodations play in the local community to really bring in guests and tourists and folks into the municipality here as well.
So on this slide, we thought it might be helpful. As mentioned, in our group, we have 6 different short-term accommodations. So we polled our group. It's the easiest way for us to get the data and give you an idea of the type of expenses that we have, and also the money that we're putting into the municipality. So of course, this is just an example, but there are 6 different STAs listed here on this slide, in different sizes, to give you a little bit of insight.
Yeah, and they really are all different shapes and sizes here. So from 2 beds right up to 8 beds. And what we've done is all of the folks that work in our group pulled together all their data we've got recent tax returns, so pretty easy to do that kind of stuff. And it really shows the range of kind of what folks are spending. So this is kind of almost the costs of running our short-term accommodations. And really the focus for some of these costs is really what is spent in the local municipality. So the cleaning, laundry, and hot tub maintenance for all of these different short-term accommodations are all workers and folks who live in this municipality, and helping us to run our short-term accommodations. So you can see a range from kind of 3,000 right up to 90,000. That's a slightly different situation there because of the property management costs are included in that as well. And that's a pretty substantial portion of the revenues that get allocated there as well. It's a pretty substantial expense there as well. The others weren't including the property management fees as well. So that shows the first line. The second line is really focused on landscaping, gardening, snow clearing, lawn mowing, all of that kind of outside stuff that needs to get done throughout the year as well. And you can again see a huge range of amounts being spent because some folks live a lot closer, some folks are a bit further away, so obviously more reliant on some of the local contractors as well. And what we've also done is pulled in together some analysis of what we spent at local businesses. So we're spending various things for gifts for guests, and other other supplies and things that we're using as well within our short-term accommodations, like soaps and coffee and apple pies from Grandma Lamb's and things like that as well. And you can see there again, a pretty substantial amount of money being spent across just the 6 STAs here on this. And then we did just show our property taxes at the bottom as well.
And just to point out on the second, the $0 is only because that money is included in the 90,000. So their property manager covers a lot of their outdoor work for that particular property.
And then on this slide, what we've done is then tried to take that data to actually go a little bit more focused on what is the economic contribution of short-term accommodations in Meaford. So at first, we looked at the spend of the STAs, and then we tried to extrapolate that across and provide an estimate of what STAs actually spend within the local municipality. So this is really based on the 100. So we've been quite conservative. We've used the lower number, the 146 active short-term accommodations. We took the average cost of our 3 and 4 bedroom accommodations within our group, as we felt that was a very reasonable number to use to extrapolate. And that would then, if you took the 146 STAs and extrapolated the costs of that 3 and 4 bedroom accommodations from our group, we were estimating that the STAs spend around $3.5 million on local staff, local contractors and trades and other folks as well that help run the short-term accommodations. We also were able to get some data from Airbnb, and I will acknowledge it is Airbnb, so they will probably want to be showing higher numbers in this as well, but they did provide an analysis of spend by guests, and they did surveys and various other things to kind of support that. And this was data from 2023, where they found that guests spent around $243 per day, of which 40% was spent at local businesses. And so we were then using an average occupancy of 50% for our short-term accommodations, because we felt that that was reasonable based on the group that we had put together. And then we took that across the 146 active listings. So if you take those numbers and multiply them all together, that comes out to about $2.6 million. And I think that is a conservative estimate of what folks will be spending. And these are the guests that come and stay in the Airbnbs as well. So the total economic impact within those two numbers is roughly just a little bit over $5 million. The map in the middle, I've tried to take a bit of a snip of what Airbnb shows, the municipality. I tried to, roughly sketch out what I thought was based on the boundaries of Meaford as well. So there are 146 active listings. If you go on Airbnb, we tried to do this, it came out to about 160 it was showing. So again, the data's not perfect, but we're using a more conservative number as well. We also did try to estimate the number of visitors to Meaford each year. So this is based on a 3-bed short-term accommodation with 50% occupancy for the year as an average. And if you take that numbers and multiply those together, you come to 160,000 visitors staying in short-term accommodations for the year. So that's a significant number of folks that are coming, that are spending money and supporting local businesses and the local economy as well.
Oh, oops. Double click, sorry about that. But I think that ties into how much potential there is. And I feel our responsibility as an STA owner is to showcase all of the wonderful, unique experiences that guests can have in the community. I know for us, we've only owned ours now for 3 years in October. But now we're at the point where we're really able to do a little less maintenance and a little bit more investment in promoting local businesses. So we've hired a couple of marketing reps. We have our own website, our own Instagram profile, and we're working with local businesses. So just, I guess it's 2 months ago now, we did a big outreach to all of the local businesses in the area to ask them if they wanted to partner with us on a summer giveaway. And just one giveaway that we did for a 2-night stay, in addition to some offerings from the local businesses, got 20,000 views. So it's amazing the potential that you can really achieve in working together. So we have some ideas here. We obviously talked a little bit about gifts, which is already a part of most of the STA's process, to offer some sort of welcome gift and a range of items. For us, we have Belvedere Farms. They provide florals seasonally. For our guests, we offer coffee from McGinty's, and our property manager has her own personalized gift in addition. So that's just like a regular part of our process, but there's, so many different ideas flying around about how you can change that according to season. You can change it for guests who are repeats. So it's exciting to see how you can, build these partnerships in the community. We also promote local businesses through our guidebooks. So that's something that we also do it on our website too, through blog posts and all of that. But most STAs will have a guidebook for their guests. If you think of it as just, an arrangement of ads for local businesses. So we've done a lot of work in putting that together. I know Chris, one of our members of our STA group, was talking with the chamber about maybe potentially collaborating on that, using what we've already put together to offer it on the chamber website, or making sure that we have all of the hot spots on ours and things like that. So I think there's some potential of expansion on our guidebooks for guests. I did talk a little bit already around the collaborating in terms of reaching out to local businesses and finding out if there's a way that we can promote some of the events that they have going on, or collaborating on giveaways and things like that. Our giveaway this past month was so successful that we had to actually make it the summer of giveaways. So we couldn't just do one. Now we have 6 lining up to the end of the summer. So it's amazing, all of the local businesses are so keen, and we're keen, to work with them too. One of the things that we're in discussion about for ours in particular is promoting a retreat. I have a friend who, has her own mom's group in Kitchener-Waterloo, and she has always wanted to do a retreat. So she may bring a group of moms away and do a retreat in the area. And that's an opportunity for the STAs to actually collaborate together, because we don't have enough bedrooms, obviously, in ours to host a retreat. So we'll be working with other STAs to collaborate on hosting the retreat together. And I think that, that pinpoints, I guess, another opportunity for Meaford is, working with the chamber. Are there conferences or things that could happen that could come to the community? Could we promote a list of STAs so that we can kind of fill in that gap of hotel, motel offerings with a list of responsible STAs that, can offer suitable accommodations. And then we get to promote all of the opportunities for the guests to experience, in terms of go for a paddleboard, or I know Colin does the sailing, and I'm talking to Colin about that for next year. So there's lots of things that we can offer in terms of excursions and restaurants and who can get on board with that type of offering. The TV and online promotion is something I think Chris had looked into a little bit, but it's still very much in its infancy. About, if you think of when you go to a hotel, there's always one of those ad channels on the TV that tells you about things happening in the community. He was like, maybe we can do something similar for Meaford and have some sort of rotating ad and listing all of the businesses. So that's something we are looking into. And the last one I already mentioned as well. So as you can see, there's, a few different ideas, but I think, oh yeah, sorry. Yes, one of our other STA owners, Paula, wanted us to highlight that she was contacted a few months ago by, the name is escaping me. Anyway, one of the orchards,
Avail?
Yeah.
Avail.
Yes, about hosting some foreign workers. So she said that she's going to host 8 of the 60 foreign workers that are needed for just one orchard. And she said it was a little bit of a lengthy process, because they have to have a health inspection and everything, but it's amazing, to think that maybe some of the STAs can help to house these foreign workers who are coming and need a kitchen to meet, the regulations, and for just a short period of time. So that's something I think we'll work on, helping connect the orchards to the STAs for the next season, because now obviously they have all their plans. yeah, but I think there's some potential there. I know for ours in particularly, we've housed a lot of construction workers in the off season, working on roads, and we had a
Market.
the group renovating the supermarket or the grocery store this past year as well. So it's that's a win for us too, because the off season sometimes doesn't fill up as quickly. But yeah, if we can have a list of the approved STAs on the chamber site, it makes it a little bit easier for people, the businesses, to find options if they are needing, you know, to house some of these short-term staff or foreign workers. Is anything? No. Okay, good. So that about wraps it up for us. Obviously, we welcome any questions or dialogue that that you may have about some of the things that we've pulled together, if there are any.
Thank you very much, Brandon and Nick. That's great. Really appreciate it. Just for the committee's edification as to why this kind of came about, CAO Everett and actually Deputy Mayor and myself, we met with the STA advocacy group, discussing the upcoming bylaw, and just talking about some of the wherefores and whys and hows of how that's going to look and how it's going to impact. But they made a similar presentation at that meeting, and I just thought it was very impactful, because it is being able to quantify some of the things that we always guess about of what's out there. And I mean, I know the elephant in the room is Blue Mountain, that you know, it's really hard to compare yourself with, but when you see the discrepancy, it is really, really amazing how much there is. So it's really important that we have a grasp of what's available and the potential of what we can aspire to. So thank you for the presentation. So I'll throw it open to anybody who would like to ask any questions.
Am I live?
Nope,
No.
try it again. There you go.
There we go. So I'm interested that you have data in here about which of the STAs are active. It's interesting that those numbers are very consistent between Meaford and the Blue Mountain, right? Like within a couple of percentage points, 67, 69, you know? So whatever seasonality exists here as much as there. I would have thought they might be a little different, given that they're a little closer to skiing and, you know, things like that. But how do you think those numbers work through the year? Like, is it really that they're going to move a lot, or is it just depends on the time of year? It's always going to be about 2/3.
And Brianna, just when you answer, just so I can get you closer to the mic, just so that we have the viewing audience hear you as well.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen that drastic a change in our numbers. From, you know, from obviously when we've been preparing for a meeting, relation to bylaw. We haven't seen a huge change, but there is like drop off. There are Airbnbs that, you know, maybe they haven't closed their listing entirely, but their calendar is empty. And so they're still listed as an STA, but they're not active. So I haven't seen a huge.
When we pulled this data, I think probably 4 or 5 months ago, it was 211 in Meaford and instead of 217.
Yeah.
And now we've seen 6 more, which doesn't, you know, that's possible. You know, could get 6 more, but it is interesting, the active versus inactive, I guess. And we've not been able to kind of really distinguish it, because when we go, if you go into Airbnb and actually look at the number of listings and try to get as close a boundary to Meaford, I got 163, I think. So again, I'm not sure the data's perfect, but we're just going with what we can pull from the online sources.
Yeah, and I think I did it last week. I got 167. Like it was very.
So it changes a little bit based
Yeah.
on like very slight movements in boundaries, or folks that are very close to the boundaries with other municipalities, because you've got obviously grey and blue and others around. So
Yeah, I'm mostly just curious, but you know, curiosity often gets you somewhere. But I mean, it's interesting if there is extra capacity, if they're there but just not active, right? And so if that's something that is not being affected by seasons, it's being affected by something else, would be interesting to figure out what that is. Because when you look at it, you say, well, if you wanted to buff that up somehow, it's sitting there. Those are the most obvious places to increase the capacity.
Yeah, that's something, I mean, certainly if you wanted us to try and dig a little deeper and figure that out, happy to. On how they're qualifying inactive. Is it that they haven't had a booking in 6 months? Is it that their calendar isn't, like, who knows? But we can dig and see if there is something interesting to figure out from that. Yeah, and maybe they would give us more of a breakdown of the numbers according to season, and if it fluctuates. I haven't noticed that, but we can look into it if it's helpful.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me ask just two more questions and then I'll stop. You know, the first one is how close are they to each other? Right, because that kind of affects things like little conferences and whatnot, which I would have thought that for some conferences, sales meetings, whatever.
For sure.
Meaford would be very competitive with other places in terms of price, including places people would go in Blue Mountain.
Yeah.
Potentially. So that's one thing, because it's one thing to have enough bedrooms to have a conference. It's another thing for people to be spread all over the
Geographically,
place.
yeah.
This isn't, you're not gonna, you know, there's no public transit really or anything like that. So you need to be close
Yes.
together. And the second thing is the markets, because it's interesting. You talked about them here and in the presentation. It's there too. You have people who at the motels who are working in municipalities. You have other guests and tourists,
Mhm.
and then temporary workers, right?
Yes.
All of which I think I would think we'd be supportive of. That's how I respond.
Yes.
But they are very different markets, I would have thought, in terms of what the pitch is, why should you come here, and all of that kind of thing. So that might be another thing for us to, think about at some point. How do you drill in and figure out who you're pitching to, right?
Yeah, I think if we tighten up those relationships with the businesses, in terms of, the STAs having a relationship or making the businesses aware of our own individual offering, then that would help. It also makes it easier for them. For instance, in our case, we've had the construction workers. If we reached out to the construction company and let them know, if you do have some temporary staff coming to build a road or, renovate, here's a list of short-term accommodations out there that are a little bit more vetted, then and it just saves them the hassle of trying to, do that outreach themselves. But I think the pitch is really having a kitchen when you're away from your home and laundry for an extended period of time. That can be quite appealing. I'm not sure how much they're working hard. I'm not sure how much the construction teams are doing aside from, eating and sleeping and all of that. But I think that can be a part of the pitch, which is very different from a group coming, obviously, to have a vacation.
In terms of your first question was about proximity and closeness to each other. From my kind of view of looking at the kind of more downtown Meaford, there were about 70, and it seemed to change every time I slightly moved the map. It was like somewhere between 65 and 75 STAs around the kind of downtown core of Meaford. And then the others are spread right across, right up to the, north coast, I guess, right down to an east and south to, is it Baltimore?
But you think that's like 20, 25 minutes, like nothing's too far.
Nothing too far. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we've done our own, it's a very tedious process, which Bree has led in terms of basically reaching out to every Airbnb to try to get them to sign up to our Facebook group. We've got about 110 signed up now to the Facebook group in total. A good solid registration, system and process will certainly collect better data for the municipality and enable much easier communication and collaboration as well, and work with the committee too.
Yeah, our intention is to promote best practices amongst the STAs in terms of responsible management. Tips and tricks, things that we've learned having done it now for a few years, and things that we feel will better serve our neighbors and our community. So I think it's my third time doing this tedious process of individually reaching out to 170 of them on Airbnb. But I think the fact that we have 110 already is amazing. It's a pretty significant number of the STAs that have now joined the Facebook group, and we can communicate very easily because we have an email sign up with them to share, new findings and updates of what's happening. So in this phase now, we want to start to share some of those business ideas and working a little bit more broader amongst the community. So So it's good. It's exciting that it's working.
Thank you, Michael. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a comment and a couple of questions, if I may. Thank you, Nick and Brianna, for your presentation today. Really interesting. And it would be my suggestion to you that you consider bringing that presentation to council as well, because I think as we move forward in this process of looking at an STA bylaw, it would be valuable for all of council
Sure.
to have the knowledge that you've shared with
Okay.
us. My first question, thinking of the mindset of a lot of people now that they're not going south of the border for vacationing, what difference, what impact is that having on STAs here locally, that people are more conscious of taking staycations this year as opposed to, as I say, traveling south of the border?
Yeah, I mean, speaking on behalf of our cottage in particular, this summer we have 5 days free in the rest of the summer. So it's busy. It's been good, which is great. I mean, that's what we want. We've also seen a little bit more this past year, Americans coming to visit the cottage, which is good. Although we had a couple tricky situations in the winter, just of them understanding what real amounts of snow meant.
Coming here without all-wheel drive cars and
Yes.
trying to drive around and got stuck in
Yeah.
that laneway anyway.
Yeah, but I think I think most people have said that it's been really positive in the last 6 months. Although on the flip side, the economy is what it is, and there are people also who are waiting longer to booking a little closer to their stay. Maybe just making sure that they financially they can afford it. But I haven't heard anything different than I have you.
I think that earlier in the year there was a bit of concern because our property manager, who manages a number of different properties, felt like bookings were down this year. But I feel like that was just the uncertainty in the economy at the time, and now that I think things are starting quickly to get a bit more settled, that we've started to see a tick up again. And so I think it's definitely more positive. And I think the fact that more people are staying kind of local in Canada is awesome, because we can promote this municipality and then promote the businesses, and it's really good.
Actually, one distinction I will make is because our property is a little bit more unique. It's 2 cottages on the same property. So in our discussions with our property manager, because we're always like, how can we, expand? How can we bring more people? How can we promote it? And she's like, you guys are doing very well comparatively, because your place allows extended family groups to come together. So it's in a bit more of a niche market. Whereas if I think we were one of the, a 2-bed or one bed, that's like the most competitive segment of this market. And they might feel it a little bit more, because the reality is there aren't that many places where you can gather with extended family on the same property. So unless of like neighboring cottages, or you have that kind of connection. So I think we've been fortunate in our business, but that's not to say that all the 1-bed, 2-beds would feel the same, because it is more competitive. Yes.
No, that's really amazing. Thank you. And my second question, do you have a sense from the research that you have done, how many of the Airbnbs locally are pet friendly, recognizing that we are in a designated dog friendly community, and we have a lot of pet related businesses that perhaps you might consider partnering with for
Yes.
those Airbnbs who are permitting pets in their
I think that data is available, but
establishments.
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Yeah.
We are. So
We can take that away. It was a conversation very early in us
Yeah.
buying the cottage with our property manager. She said you should position yourselves as pet friendly, because again, it puts you in that like niche sweet spot. And we don't have a dog. We have a cat, but we don't have a dog. So for me, I was like, oh, is it, are we going to have dogs running around chewing things? And I love dogs, but not all dogs are the same. And I thought about the damage, but she's like, no, you just build in, a fee, a pet fee for extra cleaning and that kind of, and we honestly have never had an issue. I also was thinking about sad reality of dog poop on the lawn, and like, how are we going to make sure it's all cleaned up? But we literally have never had an issue. So it's been really positive that families can bring all of their family members to, to the cottage, which is great.
But we'll try and,
we'll
if we
take
do a
it away.
presentation to council, we'll try and get that data for you to see what's pet friendly as well.
Yeah, so we have two homework assignments so far, okay?
So far.
Yeah, so far, yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Reed?
Thank you very much for the presentation. And congratulations on organizing a group. I really think that it is an industry amongst our community. And I think your data shows that, it's kind of good for the community. I have a couple of questions. I wanted to know if you've been watching the bylaw
Yes.
discussions around council table. One of the important things I think is that any bylaw is kind of revenue neutral. And do you know what the member perspective is on whether it should be revenue neutral?
Members in STA members?
Yes.
I mean, at least from speaking for us 6 groups, I think we're fairly comfortable as long as the costs are practical and pragmatic, and any fees associated with that registration would be, likewise similarly practical, pragmatic, and reasonable, and absolutely no concerns in terms of making that revenue.
Okay.
Hasn't
Okay.
been a big theme.
No.
I think
Okay.
people are more nervous around some of the limitations
Right.
in terms of number of bedrooms or type of short-term accommodation that which would be permitted. That's the concern. That's the chitter chatter amongst the group more so than fee. I mean, we realize like there should be a fee, and that
Right.
fee should cover the costs, and
Okay.
no one seems fearful or opposed to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think some of the promotional ideas that you have in terms of what's going on in town, getting that out there, some of that might take some funds. And
Yes.
so I'm wondering how you feel about a municipal tourism tax that would take a small percentage from all of the operators to help fund some of these initiatives.
I mean, personally, I feel like although there may be a cost up front, in the end, you end up, earning it back and more people wanting to stay with you and learning about Meaford and what Meaford has to offer. So I think that in the very early days of the bylaw, that's something that we were like, yes,
Okay.
if it makes sense,
Sure.
but it has to be done properly.
Right.
Obviously.
And
to
there are
entice
other
people to come.
municipalities that have implemented similar kinds of taxes as well. Again, I mean, I think maybe it's a kind of like, I think there's going to be some updates and things coming through council and discussion certainly on this over. I think maybe get it in place, see how the different kind of already the initiatives that are underway kind of operate. And then if there's further funding and expenses that need to be
Sure.
covered, then maybe at that point it gets
Yeah.
considered as well to a later date.
Like a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year plan.
Yeah,
And I think also the type of STA or the size of STA may have very different feelings on that.
Mhm.
A 1 bed or someone sharing a part of their home is a very different landscape than ours.
Mhm.
And I know when we have been in those discussions with CAO, is very mindful of those differences between the types of business models. Yeah, because someone you're renting one room of their home is probably likely doing it to share the costs of their own mortgage, right? And
Right.
so some of the taxes and the upfront cost may be a little bit more alarming. Whereas on our side, tourism and promoting it is going to help us. Bring more people to Meaford. So we might have different thoughts.
Yeah. So some of the initiatives like grooming our trails and making sure that they're accessible during the winter, that would be very important for an industry like yours. And it might not be as important in other communities, but these are some of the things that need to be considered for sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Reed. Yeah, it's interesting because I'll just put in that from council perspective, walking before we're running, we're trying to get the bylaw in place. Mat taxes have been discussed, obviously, but until we get a functioning bylaw, see the success of that, and then possibly looking at the possibility of a MAT tax to see whether or not, ancillary funds that might be available to do things like that. You had a question, Kelly?
More just a comment. I really appreciate the effort that went into quantifying some of the economic contributing that happens to the municipality. And I wonder if, as you update this or keep it current, if you're willing to share that, because we did see a community profile that I think mentioned tourism, but didn't have as strong of numbers as this. So it would be
Great.
helpful to add to that, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that like an every 3 months or how often would you want that?
When you do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Okay.
I mean, it's helpful for us to know as well, and obviously, yeah, we can keep track of the numbers that are there, and if we see any significant spikes up or down, yeah, certainly we can make you folks aware and update this as well. So
That'd be great.
And with our group, we can do a poll easily on some of those things, ask them what their thoughts are, if that's helpful or if and when that's helpful. If you want to get a little bit more feedback amongst, the 110 so far that are a part of the group, I think it might be 112 anyway. So we can do that.
Ron,
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Being a finance person, I like all the data, so like that. But going forward, do you conduct exit interviews? What did you like about Meaford? What could be improved and those types of things? Or and if you ever did that data, if you could share it with us, and then we could direct economic investment to maximize those opportunities for your guests.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I know specifically for ours, we ask, obviously we ask for feedback from our guests upon them leaving and for them to share any constructive feedback. I will be honest that there isn't a lot of uptake in answering those questions. I think people, once they've left, they've kind of moved on with, their life, I guess. But that's interesting to kind of ask beyond their experience at our place and more about the community. So we could look at.
we've had a lot more questions recently about boats.
Yes.
And where to dock, where to launch from, and things like that as well. So I mean, I don't remember any other feedback, negative or particularly positive about the municipality. I mean, they would comment specifically on the STA, I think, but they don't tend to mention municipality too much. But definitely a lot of questions about boats and other activities in the community.
Yeah, but one thing we're noticed, because now we're working with the marketing group and we have a lot of analytics on, where people are spending time on our website in particular, and our blogs on, what to do in the spring, what to do in the summer, what to do in the fall, what to do in winter are the most popular portions of our website. So I think people are interested in what's going on in the community and kind of visualizing what their stay might be like ahead of the stay. So we're seeing that data, and as we, one STA expand our knowledge of what's going on. Like I just learned about the new glass greenhouse, and it's super cool. We're going to go to their event upcoming. So, but there's so much to learn, and you could. So anyway, as we learn more, we can promote more, and then people will have perhaps some more feedback on their experience. Yeah.
Yes, well, I appreciate that. And if you do find anything that you think that we should be investing in and looking at to improve your facilities and your accommodation rate, please let us know.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Will do.
Evelyn,
Again, like all the others, it was a great presentation. My area of interest is the collaborative work you're trying to do with the other businesses. So I was just curious on how you define that collaborative work and how you see that integrating down the road.
Yeah, well, I think it is a balance. I mean, I know for us, it took it's taking a financial investment and hiring obviously a marketing team and putting a lot of man hours from that's my job, but working with them to build up that website and the Instagram and all of that. But also we're part of this group of the 6 short-term accommodation. So we plan, like Chris had mentioned, he wants to, he is our representative for the chamber. So he had talked about the chamber being interested in having some collaboration on the guidebook. And I think we've already done the work. you know, the reality is we've had our guidebook done now for years, so might as well share it. There's no, to me, that's not competition because all we're doing is promoting what's available in the community. So I think there are opportunities like that where we've already invested in it. Let's share it amongst with the chamber or share it with our community of STAs on Facebook, and people can choose to replicate it or not. That's up to them in their own business model. You know, there was discussion with Chris about the retreat. We're also discussing that with our marketing team and my friends. So there'll be some opportunities to share our best practices, and we can, you know, collaborate with. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know every single STA on this Facebook group. So when it comes to collaborating on a retreat, I probably prefer to collaborate with the ones that we do know to make sure that they're the right type of business model as a first go. But depending, obviously, if there's an interest in a larger retreat, then we can pull a wider group. So I think we're going to kind of learn as we go here and pick and choose how much we collaborate with the 110 or in smaller groups. And it might depend on which project we're talking about. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that answers exactly what you're talking about.
It does. I think part of the new business model is learning how to work in partnership and collaborating to benefit all. But I think everybody's learning in that process. So I'm excited that you're doing that as a model. And I'm just wondering, you know, if through the chamber or through some other mechanisms that could, some of those learnings can be shared down.
Yeah. And I think I had one other on that last slide. The TV. I mean, Chris and our group are in the beginning phases of talking about that channel. I mean, that's something that can be mass shared amongst the group once it's, I guess, going. We'll have to look into, you know, the costs and whatnot, but there's definitely an opportunity of us leading the way, doing some of the groundwork, and then sharing it amongst the wider group when it's more ready. Anything else that you would add on that?
No, I don't.
Sure. I'm gonna make this the last one because we do have still, we can talk about this all afternoon,
Yeah,
obviously, and it's a good conversation,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I promise just one question. And perhaps you have already done this, but the Grey County website is
Yes.
really excellent, their economic development portion. And just thinking of discussing the idea of the TV scripts and recognizing the Gather campaign that Grey has done so successfully. And Jessica could link you with that if you don't already have it. But we know our visitors don't recognize, you know, the boundaries of Meaford as much as we want them to stay and spend in Meaford. They're going to travel abroad, and those videos are just absolutely incredibly well done that could keep, you know, perhaps the visitors at least in the area. So if that's of interest, I know Jessica could provide a link for you.
Always, yes. I think I am on their newsletter and following them, but feel free to share. I think they also hosted an influencer. Not in Meaford. There's an influencer that I was trying to get to come stay with us, but she's wanted money in addition to the stay. So she went elsewhere, which is fine. But it was really neat to see the content that she produced for them. She spent a little bit more time, I think, in Owen Sound and stayed there. We'll get her next time. Anyway, but yeah, I think there is a lot. They're doing some really interesting work, and they promote a lot of different events in the wider community. So that's a good point. About that.
thank you. So again, I don't want to prolong it because we're going to move on. Thank you very much for the presentation. I have one thing just to add to what you've done, because it's very thorough and great information. The one thing I didn't hear you talk about, and I mean, we can obviously guess, seasonality. We pride ourselves as a 4-season destination.
Yeah.
Realistically, we know our shoulder seasons are very difficult for our businesses. Our winter, Reed had already alluded to, we want to groom the trails. We want to make this as a welcoming community year round as we possibly can. From your perspective, it would be good to know kind of the seasonality, proportionality, because we know summer's heavy, so we get that. And that would also maybe enable us to help focus on what we need to do in the other seasons to compensate, or what we need to do working with some of the groups on, events that happen or businesses and what they can do, but just, what we need to do collectively to try and make that a full ranging offering.
Yes, I mean, we see it in our business. Last year, I think we had 70 individual stays throughout the year. But obviously, like half of those are, a third of those are in the summer probably. But we are trying to promote, other seasons, obviously with the ski. It's easy with skiing but then it's more like fall and spring that are a little lower.
It is.
It's good when there's a lot of snow, because the skiers come. But yeah,
But
it's
even
something
this
we're
winter, there
mindful
was a
of.
lot of snow this winter, and we weren't that busy during the Jan-Feb time frame, which was interesting. Our June, July, August this year, incredibly busy. Interestingly, September, October, every weekend is booked right now for us, and some weekdays as well. So
Mhm.
we're actually seeing people book earlier for the fall right now, which is great
Excellent.
as well. So
Great.
hopefully this year we'll see.
Well, thank you again, Brandon. Nick, we really appreciate you coming in and doing this. We're going to a conversation incidentally next about a business directory discussion, which we're hoping to kind of get a Meaford business directory going. So in terms
Great.
of your visibility, stay tuned because Jessica will obviously let you know, but we're hoping we already have on our Meaford website, we have a business directory.
Yeah.
It's run by obviously operators from their perspective. We don't, but we would like to make sure we get that fleshed out. So between the chamber and the municipality, we would really like to try and get that going. So that might be of value to your group and beyond as well.
Yeah,
Thank you
for
very
sure.
much. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Okay,
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
thank you. Right. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your meeting and your day. It was lovely to speak with all of you. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
List of homework.
Okay, moving on to B, business directory discussion. And again, this was born of a conversation that we had with CAO Everett talking about, again, we've talked in great length about a number of different active initiatives, i.e. the BRNE, the active strat plan update, infrastructure readiness. We talked about a lot of things, but just in terms of a low hanging fruit and something that we hopefully can get going on quicker and quickest is the business directory discussion. So I'm going to turn this over to Jessica because she's actually been doing a little bit of work on this already. So Jessica, if you want to kind of give us an update on that.
Thank you. So I've got some notes through your chair. The project aims to develop the business directory to support the following objectives. We're planning on gathering data from the businesses in Meaford to understand the industry, the length of service, their location. We're planning on highlighting the diversity of the industries and the services of the businesses. We're also planning on sharing that information with Grey County because their portion of Meaford on their website is not up to date either. So they're really excited about that. Our timeline for it is like June, July, we're planning. August, October, we're going to be collecting inputs, drive engagement through communications. November, we're going to highlight the data, and we're also going to align the opportunities with the potential BIA engagement that we're hoping to have. So that will be a really good spot for us to bring all of the business directory options up in that as well. So that's kind of where we're at with it. It's going to be really great, I think, from a communications as well to kind of engage, and yeah, we're working on it.
Any questions in that regard? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica, it's so great to hear that you're working on this because we've been talking about a business directory for eons, quite literally. So my question is, thinking that, it's kind of been started and tried various times over the years, and like the Chamber of Commerce, for example, will have a listing of some businesses, not them all. And we know a local business owner also undertook an effort to try to create a bit of a list. So I'm just wondering about the collaborative aspect, Jessica, how you plan to work with other organizations who may have attempted this to maybe minimize your workload a little bit to pull an actual list together.
As far as working with chamber, like, we want the information to be accurate, and even with community members that have kind of started working on collecting information from businesses. We really want the businesses to be the ones doing, like, giving us the information. They can also upload photos and things like that as well. But I think working with the community and the chamber, I think it makes sense for us to kind of collaborate and work together. So I'm hoping that, after fives, we can have a spot there, like myself and Nisa are always there. So that maybe we could develop some sort of intake for businesses there, because there are always new businesses going to that. So there's a few avenues that we could kind of work together that way. I'm really interested to see the participation that we get just from the municipality and the comms plan, because even the survey that we did last year, the engagement was like the highest it's ever been. And like, I think more and more people are wanting the business information. So I'm hoping that that will be a good start. But I mean, I'm open to ideas of how to get the information from businesses. So, yeah.
Read.
Um, uh, in terms of the commonality, I think the centralized fields that you're collecting should be very consistent across, whether it be the chamber collecting it, the municipality collecting it, even if it's associations that are not businesses. There should be an organization set standard that we kind of, start first based on. And that way, not everyone has to collect everything. So it could come together in the end, but if there could be a base meeting, I guess, with the participants who would benefit from the finished list, what do they need to collect? Like, obviously you need a field for, are they a chamber member or not? Click. Are they, when was the last active event? Or some of these basic fundamentals. So a kickoff meeting amongst the group, and I don't know whether it be chamber, Rotary, I'm not sure who, but that would be my recommendation.
Evelyn was first, Ron, I'll get back to you.
Mine's just short and sweet. My concern is, yeah, I get a sense you want to do the perfect list. I don't think that's a viable objective. I think we should get, even if you got only 50% or whatever it is, that become active, and then we add on as we get it. But I think I'd like to support Reed's perspective on working with our community groups. And then it's, then you've got at least hopefully their email or some ability to contact them. They can always verify and say, yes, that information is correct or not. I think the numbers that might attend the chamber events, it seems to attract the people who have the time to come at that time of thing on a regular basis. I don't think we're gonna get our numbers from that particular event, but I think if we can work with others, it would be a better start and not work for perfection right at the beginning.
Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to Jessica. Yes, I think an accurate list is but my question is regarding format. I know when I go to a municipality, the first thing I look at is where's the microbrew or the restaurants. So I was thinking if we could sort by format when somebody is trying to access, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's government or education, whether it's business or professional services, we could direct them to that very directly without going through, because I think currently it's an alpha list we have on the municipal site. So if we sorted by activity and so on like that, anyone accessing it could get to the item they wanted very quickly.
Anyone else?
One,
Jessica?
one other thing that I forgot to mention is, I've reached out to the Agriculture Society. And I thought it would be really, valuable to have a list of farms as well. So I'm also doing an agriculture directory as well, which is just an added,
I think that is, I mean, they are businesses.
yeah.
Right?
We've never had that though, so I just wanted to let you
No.
know.
Thank you. To that end, it's interesting because I agree with kind of that mindset of, I wonder if it's almost the potential of setting up an initial committee, not for long term, but if you had Chamber in downtown Meaford, Simply Unique's obviously doing it. The Ag Society, us, I mean, if you actually got the players into a room and talk about kind of what the standard is first off, so to set the bar so everybody's there. I understand that groups like Chamber are going to obviously want that there's a pay to play scenario, so this is kind of a little touchy, but same token, it's the benefit to all. So doing that as kind of a collective, even if it's only initially as a fact gathering scenario to see where we all stand, might be the quickest route to get to a point of mass information first. And then from there, if everybody wants to go their own way and keep it going, but at least we have a commonality to start with and maybe a base group that to start with. And I would think the downtown Meaford and Chamber right now would probably be pretty open to it because they're also trying to figure that out. Whether the private sector is looking to willing to participate in that, but I mean, she's pretty and ambitious on this as well. So it might be just something to consider. Okay. Moving on to point C, which is the community benefit bylaw discussion. And I'm going to turn this over to the deputy mayor, who will just give us a little bit more information on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll just try to provide a short update in relation to the community benefit bylaw. We did host a public meeting, and I think a number of you were able to attend that. Those comments were all recorded by staff, and they will be utilized as well as the information from council and this group in a report that will come to council in September. So that will be our next opportunity to really have discussion on the bylaw as it currently exists. I expect we'll see some recommendations for some amendments to it, and I'll look forward to that in September. What's been interesting to me through all of this process is that we on council are hearing from people that we hadn't heard from before. We've heard lots from individuals who are opposed to the TC Energy project, and we appreciate that feedback. But we're also now starting to hear from people who feel that this project could be good for Meaford. And it's kind of interesting to see these folks step out now and express their positive comments in support of the project. So that is one kind of side effect from the bylaw as it exists. There were visioning sessions hosted, one with staff and a second one with council. And those were undertaken as an initiative from our CAO with Strategy Corp, who everyone will be aware of because that's one of the agencies that was engaged initially to assist Meaford as we go forward with TC Energy. So those were really, really interesting sessions, and they're where Jessica's going to correct me because I'm going to call them media boards, but they're not that. What's the proper name for them? That's just a visioning board?
Sorry, into like a visual. So it was,
Vision board.
A
yeah, a vision board. Yeah.
A vision board. Thanks, Jess. And those are just incredibly well done. And fortunately, staff and council were fairly well aligned in our comments. So where will those eventually be displayed? Do you know that at this point in time, Jessica?
I know that the staff one is in the office. I'm not too sure what the plan is for them, where they're going to be for the public to see. Like, I haven't got word on where they're going to be, but I think I think they should be at Meaford Hall or somewhere for the community to see for sure. I can find out.
That would be great, Jessica, because I think they're just incredibly well done and they really do tell the story of where we are. So that's pretty much where we're at with the bylaw at this point.
Thank you. I know that I'm going to open this up to questions, and this will be around basically the TCE conversation in general. I think there is a desire for this committee, like most, PSAC has kind of had the most input into this thus far. But I think from a community benefit perspective, growing our economy, obviously this has got to be part of that conversation. So I would think that we would like to be there as well. So once the CAO and Strategy Corp have sort of gotten a little further, the hope is that that will come back to this body as well. So there'll be a presentation here as well. So there can be feedback from this group as well. Having said that, I'm going to throw it open to questions for the Deputy Mayor. Evelyn.
I think it's great that that work has begun. It doesn't matter, I guess, if we build it in bits coming here, but can you just give me a sense of how does this fit in? Because we haven't done a community vision. We haven't done a community plan. And we're, so often to get any project done, one needs to create, why are we in the swamp in the first place? So what are we trying to achieve? But we're doing, I guess I'm hoping, eternally hoping that we will do and somehow work this up into a community plan involving, so if there's information coming, let's say from your work, and if there's some visioning or work coming from any other groups, that those get fed in and eventually that we do this exercise. And I don't know where that's gone because I know our committee actually put forward a recommendation that we wanted to see council commit itself to creating that community vision and setting some priorities in all the key areas, which one would affect the work from TC Energy and the new bylaw, but it would inform our activities and everybody else's. So I'm just curious as to where the discussions are at on how this is, I'm hoping it's going to build towards the broader community and a community effort at doing some prioritizing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Evelyn, I really appreciate the question because I think there's kind of two things at play here. In our agenda is the community benefit bylaw, which is just that specific document that is in front of council. But then there's also the discussion about a community benefit agreement. Last week, we introduced at PSAC Ravenna Consulting. So we have now engaged Kim Wingrove, the former CIO of Grey County, to kind of take on the relationship building and the engagement with TC Energy, which we are really, really pleased to have Kim on board. She comes with a lot of contacts, not just locally, but at the provincial level and beyond. So she's going to be really valuable to us. And one of the first things that I know she'll be undertaking is understanding the community engagement process and how we want to undertake that. And there's all kinds of ways to do it. And I know all the staff in front of us will be involved in that as well, because there'll be surveys and town halls, and there'll be opportunities to provide input by emails and every way we can think of. We want the public's opinions on what it is we want to get out of this project, because the bottom line is the province has provided $285 million to TC Energy to undertake their impact assessment process. So that's not a final approval on the project, of course, but I think we can assume that, things are going to progress for the next couple of years anyway. So that being said, we as a municipality want to get everything we can out of TC Energy and the process as it goes forward. So, and to do that, we want to make sure that the public has, as I said, lots and lots of opportunity to participate in this process, because I think we've all been kind of thinking in the back of our minds, Do we want to get a new pool? Do we want to get a new arena? Do we just want to get some money? What do we want to get out of this? So I hope that we can come together in the best way that we can to kind of create through that dialogue a plan that we can take forward into the actual document of a community benefit agreement that will then outline what I see as being kind of short, medium, and long-term benefits. I mean, there's so many things, but just for an example, one thing that's really important to me is local health care. And I'm hopeful that we can encourage TC Energy to support us with doctor recruitment, and whether that is, actual funds or undertaking a study to help us determine really what our needs are. There's lots of ways of approaching that, but that is, it's not a low hanging fruit for sure, because we've got a lot of people in this community who don't have a doctor, and that's of major concern. But it's something I think that we can undertake kind of initially as we move forward in the longer discussion of, is it the rec center, or what is it that we hope to achieve in that longer time frame. So yes, there's an awful lot to unpack there, and we think there's lots of time, but yet there isn't. We really hope to have this community benefit agreement tied down in less than a year. I want to see it done the end of this year, or early into the spring, that we get that we get the public engagement underway, and that we get some language into this agreement so that we can start receiving something from TC Energy, because as a municipality, they've been paying the bills and we've been submitting them and they've been getting paid, but we haven't seen anything discretionary beyond that. And I think it's time we did, because they've been around this community for a lot of years now, and they've caused us a lot of grief, and they've caused disruption within our community. And, there's also positive as well to the potential of them being here and operating this project. But again, we haven't received anything to date yet, other than them paying their bills. So I'm quite anxious to get that agreement underway and to start seeing something coming our way. That answer your question, Evelyn? Yeah, thank you.
To piggyback on that just a little, one of the things that, yes, in terms of the overall messaging, but the council was very specific in the conversations, as was staff, as was every strategy corp as well, was about timelines of this. We won't be able to report timelines, but strategy corp went away with the knowledge that, yes, we need definitely community input. We need discussion. We need a lot of different avenues of doing that. So they're very aware. So what's going to happen is, there's going to have to come back and report what realistic timelines that's going to represent. How that dovetails with what we had asked about visioning from an ECDEV perspective for all the different things we need, BRE, strat plan, et cetera. That's going to kind of dovetail together, but that was an emphasis that we need to get that moving. And so let's get some dates set. So hopefully those will be kind of next steps that we will be hearing, is realistically when are talks going to happen, and when are these things going to evolve. Ron, I think you had something.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the timeline, I think it's going to be critical for our committee to know the timeline in order to respond in a timely manner. We only have meetings every couple of months, so that may make it challenging for us to offer some collaborative, and especially in concert with our mission statement, which basically says to create and maintain a diverse and innovative economy that retains people and creates investment that we're always looking for, and an innovative economy. So I think that timeline is very important to be part of that collaborative process.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have a question just for clarification on the scope of the visioning that took place. Was it just limited to what would be in an agreement, or was it what a community might look like? And sort of dovetailing off of Evelyn's question, just understanding maybe the parameters around that vision and what came out of it.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, it was fairly broad scoped. We all had plenty of opportunity to share our thoughts, good, bad, and and everywhere in between. But yeah, it wasn't a confined discussion because it was really more of that blue sky kind of atmosphere where everybody was comfortable to kind of share their thoughts. But I think it's a good place to start. And then, as we said, Strategy Corp takes all that away now, and then they'll come back with a magnificent report that will help us understand, where we take all of that, those comments and put them into something tangible that we can start to work on. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, to your point, Ron, yeah, we're gonna be off in August as well. So I mean, from every aspect on timing of this, yeah, it should have all been done yesterday. So now we're just trying to expedite as much as we can. So hopefully we can get a report back and get some more solid timelines in place so that everybody can move forward on the same pages. Michael?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I may be behind the curve a little, so feel free to educate me a little bit. I'm trying to make sure I understand the swim lanes that people are in here, the difference between Kim's group and what Strategy Corp is up to. And the second thing I would say is, in terms of the timelines and in terms of the community benefits and whatnot, there are a couple of other things we have to think about, right? Because one of them is what happens while the project is being built. Pretty critical that Strategy Corp, they're our negotiate for us to make sure that's all fine. But the real issue is making sure what happens afterwards. That's fair, but those need to be really quite nicely integrated, because you actually want to use the building program to set the groundwork for what's coming afterwards. So, don't build things that people will live in for a little while and then they're done and away they go because the thing has been built. The Strategy Corp needs to be, or somebody needs to be well possessed of the notion that something changes after that, right? So those are kind of the important things. The other thing I would say is timeline in terms of getting something done is important, but timeline in terms of recognizing that we are at a point of absolutely maximum leverage right now, having done a lot of this kind of stuff. And this is the time to be asking and being creative and all of that sort of thing. Leverage, you lose leverage slowly at first and then quickly. So it's very important that now's the time, as you say, Shirley, to make sure the asks are exactly what you want and for enough.
If I may, Mr. Chair, respond to Michael, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. In terms of the housing, there've been some early conversations about what that might look like, and ideally, yes, that something would be built. And I know a number of developers are already in conversation with TC Energy, keen to participate in that process. But yes, ideally, it would be something that could come back to this municipality to be used for potentially affordable housing. So we hope that will be the outcome. In terms of Kim's group, just would clarify, if I may, we have PSAC, which is the Pump Story Advisory Committee, another committee of council, and Kim will certainly be present at those meetings, and as well, then she'll be undertaking sort of the day-to-day communication with TC Energy and reporting that back to both that group and to council on a regular basis. And we could perhaps ask her to come and provide presentation to this group as well. I think that would be meaningful. In terms of the timing, I know we have our next meeting set for September 17th, and if we're lucky, maybe we have something, ahead of that to discuss. But I think there's always the opportunity upon the call of the chair to have, an extra meeting, a special meeting, if we needed to gather to talk about that report. So I think we can just always be conscious that there are additional opportunities to get together, because you're right, timing is critical. And we want everybody involved in this. And also I would share that from TC Energy's perspective, they want this agreement in place as much as we do. So they are also keen on, sort of the end of the year, early spring timeline that we've suggested. They want to understand, where they're at and what the implications are to the funding that they've received, because, everything has to go back to the province for final approval. So there's work to be done. So yeah, the timelines are critical all the way around.
Anything else? Great. Seeing nothing, then we'll move on to point D, which is the Rural Ontario Development Program. This is brought to my attention by a couple of individuals, actually. I'm going to let Ron just address this quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On June 24th of 2025, the Rural Development Program was introduced with 20 million in funding over the next 2 years. The program is focused on cost sharing for projects held within rural communities. One of the items was to address barriers and build capacity for economic development, to attract, retain, and expand business, to attract and retain investment and jobs, and to strengthen regional economies. Also to address development challenges, and also looking at other drivers for economic development. One of the items that was mentioned in there was the BR&E 2024 survey results that were distributed to as part of the process. Basically, a lot of those results may be of interest to us, and they had 280 responses with respect of the BR&E studies that were conducted in 2024. Some of the advantages to the communities as a place of business, 82% were happy with the community support that they received from local residents. 79% were happy with internet service, so there must have been some very rural communities involved here. 77% were happy with the support they got from other businesses in the community. 74% were happy with the support from the municipality. And critical to our municipality, 69% were satisfied with the availability of health and medical services, which I thought was quite interesting from these communities. Unfortunately, they didn't identify the communities that were the respondents. However, with respect to the BR&E, at our meeting on June the 30th of 2025, the committee passed a motion recommending to council that an application for a Rural Ontario Development Program be established. I'm glad to report today that in concert with municipal staff, they are currently working on our application on behalf of the municipality of Meaford. And thank you, Jess, for doing that. Basically, that's my opening remarks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ron. Are there any questions, comments on this? Nope, seeing nothing. I'll move on. Oh, sorry, Jessica, sorry.
Through your chair. So I did participate on July 8th on the Rural Ontario Development Program webinar for the application because it's very extensive. So that was really interesting. And we have a little working group that's going to be working on that application. So it's taking a village for the application. So it's going to be really, really good. And I've also spoke to Southgate about the application and got some really good information from them and stuff. So we're applying.
Great, thank you. Point C and F, I'm gonna again turn to Jessica just to talk a little about the open fields discussion. This is gonna dovetail a little with point F volunteers, which is brought up as well. So I think they will end up piggybacking, but I'll kind of let you just give us a little information about the open fields event first.
Alan from the town of Blue Mountains reached out in regards to Meaford collaborating with the town of Blue Mountains to participate in the Open Fields Farm Tour. And we were very excited to accept the invitation. The actual event day is September 27th. I've reached out to multiple farms. A few have denied just because they already have plans and scheduling conflicts. I've confirmed that the Purple Hollow will be participating in the tour. And she's very excited about it. They lasted from about like 10 a.m. to 3. We will be helping with marketing and entertainment at the tour. It can be as big or as small as the farm wants. They can have vendors there, food trucks, and 10 to 15-minute tours of the farms. So stay tuned because I have reached out to another farm to see if we can get multiple farms participating. So I'll bring updates as far as the progress of that. Yeah, and I mean, as far as the volunteers go, there will be staff that are participating during the tours. Alan had mentioned that in the past, it's usually friends and family of the farm owners that really help with parking and navigating the visitors. I wanted to leave it open to this group. If you would like to participate and volunteer during that time, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, it'll be just staff there and then the farm helpers and yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, having participated in the Blue Mountains, I did visit 4 of the 6 locations last year, and they did have municipal representation at each one. And again, the active director was at one, or there was different staff at others. So it does come down to a staffing issue to a degree, depending, the more people we have involved, obviously, the more resources that are required, which kind of leads into the volunteer conversation, because this is an opportunity to really, truly put our money where our mouth is in terms of championing our rural neighbors and businesses. So it'd be really nice to try and, make a concerted effort to get a few of them involved. And I can appreciate that this is also a fairly short time frame for them to turn it around, and we may be better at 2026. This could be more of a trial run for us, but I really hope that we can get a few and then figure out how we can really use this to our advantage from a municipal representation and partnership and collaboration with these businesses, so that we can make that handshake to these rural entities. So I'll throw it open to questions to Jessica or comments. Kelly.
Oh, no, sorry.
Shirley.
I'm so sorry. I'll be super quick. I just wanted to say to Jess that I'll volunteer for at least part of the day.
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out a model that I'm familiar with. Before moving here, I was a member of, it was a volunteer group in Minto, and we had 3 of them. There was one that was all aboard Palmerston. There was Harrison Rising and Clifford Connects, and each little burg had their own. And it was a group of volunteers that sort of took ownership of the volunteer activities like this, and sort of had a lot of say in sort of self-organizing, and did that in partnership with the municipality. So that might be a model to look at. And it was also very beneficial when it came to community projects like doing VRNs or downtown revitalization projects or other things where additional hands are required. And it really helped mobilize a group of people and really sort of helped us feel like we were it was ownership of it a little bit and could be used for executions like this.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna morph that into the volunteer discussion. And the reason this is on here is very interesting, because I was actually at an event and I had a member of the public come up to me and specifically asked me, to your point, about the potential of volunteering for municipal. And she cited the fact that she's volunteered for the hospital in the past. Obviously, the hospital is a great example of volunteer cooperation and utilization that works to the nth. And when you talk about privacy aspects and concerns, you can't get much more than the health system and that. So her point was valid. She said, we do have limited resources in terms of municipal reach for doing events of that scope and trying to spread that out and to do something like that. And she said she knew others would be interested if the municipality was interested in going that direction about participating in something like that. I don't know if it's something that in my short tenure on council, that I don't know whether past municipal iterations have kind of investigated that as an avenue of resources. But it just seems to me that we do have a community that is very volunteer driven. And given the right opportunities, who knows, that might be a possibility. This is something that would obviously, we'll need to take back to the CAO for a conversation to determine kind of need, scope, availability, whatever. And then whether that gets back to council. But I just thought that this body might be interested in a conversation about that or a recommendation to council regarding that as a resource for the municipality to use. So that's where this came from on here, and I'll throw it open to the floor. Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and really interesting. And I would just say different things have been tried over the years. For a while at the chamber, we had a staff member dedicated to trying to match up volunteers with different opportunities. And I don't know at the municipality that we've really done that, although I do remember in our budget process last year, there was a request for a volunteer coordinator, and unfortunately we had so many other pressures that we couldn't go forward with that at that point in time, but maybe we can look at that again. I think, you know, people come to Meaford oftentimes because they've attended an event, if it's a scarecrow invasion or whatever it is. And sometimes, you know, they return and they come back and they stay here and eventually they move here. And then, you know, they in turn step out and volunteer for those organizations. But it's just such an anomaly, I think, that we have here in Meaford. When I talk to people in other communities that can't believe that we have the level in volunteerism that we do, that people commit to something and they show up and they do it and they come back and they do it again. It's really special. And I think we have to be conscious of that, and we have to recognize that, and we have to protect it and encourage it in every way we can. And if it's determined, you know, through this conversation and at the council table, that is our responsibility as a municipality, then I think we need to put some resources behind it.
Evelyn.
I agree. Community is great in terms of volunteerism and a way of getting involved, but I'm not sure that that's a municipal function as much as, because I mean, it's worked well without the municipality doing it. But maybe there are other ways where we can list all the organizations that look for volunteers, you know. So, you know, you're new to the municipality. We have lots of thriving and whatever. You know, again, it's a connecting. It's like having a good list of businesses. It's so that people, when they look at if they want to invest or they want to do whatever, we have the information on the website. I mean, we could do a lot more with our website from many perspectives. I think volunteerism is another one. It's more that we're just, you know, you talked about categories of things, you know, and I mean, you could have something on our website based on that. I'm not sure that we should be taking over the volunteers for all our wonderful community groups. I think they all have a capacity because they're going to sell their organization the best. But I think anything we can do to support it, you know, would be good.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I appreciate that, Evelyn, and don't disagree at all. I mean, we have hosted volunteer fairs, and that's been successful where groups can come and set up and talk to individuals who may be interested. And so I think, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe that's more our role, is to kind of create those opportunities and, you know, to list them rather than dedicating a staff member to it, because it is a little bit out of the scope, but I just want to see that, you know, somebody's recognizing the opportunity and is working on it, whether it is the chamber or we all work together, or just however it happens.
And I think I better just clarify, the reason this even came up was literally it's not a push environment, it's a poll, because it was truly a member of the public who came to us and said, might be interested in doing this, and new people might be interested in doing this in concert with the municipality. So this is not really an initiative to try and talk about how the municipality could support Christmas on the Bay or the Rotary or Scarecrow with volunteers, nothing like that. This is about how these people said they appreciate, there are some out there, they appreciate that there's a lot of work needs to be done in the municipality. Resourcing is difficult. And they said, like the hospital, would it be an avenue available for the staffing to help volunteers to help with staffing the way that they do at a hospital? Low level, easy kind of entry stuff that could be time consuming, it could be public facing, it could be a number of things. But it was really interesting that it was them approaching us to say, do you need help? So it's not totally at all about trying to get involved with events that are already existing and approaching that from a volunteer recruitment or involvement or organization capacity, because no, that's not our lane. But it's an interesting thought that she brought forward. Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recently, been involved with Christmas on the Bay and the memorandum of an understanding that we were requesting from the municipality. The cost of that was about $11,000 from what I understand. And of course, there was no budgetary amount in the 2025 budget for that. In addition, there are many other events in Meaford that are involved with economic independence that would certainly, I'm guessing, some events we would need. Recently, the municipality has hired a community engagement coordinator. And I think for her to effectively do that job, I'm saying that there should be some resources that are available from the community to allow her to do that. So in light of that, I have a draft of a resolution that I'll report and give to the committee here after we've had all the discussion.
Read.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to circle back to, this is not a generic comment about all volunteers, but in terms of the open fields discussion and volunteers, because it's a farm tour, I would think the first discussion that I would want to have would be the Meaford Farmers Market president or coordinator, Steve Smith, because he's kind of aware of who comes to the farmers market and who might be in the area and how they coordinate things. So that'd be a starting point. It's only a suggestion.
Thank you, Reed. Anyone else? If not,
Thank you, Rob. I'd like to move this draft resolution. Whereas the municipality of Meaford has a significant reliance on community events for the tourism component of economic development, and whereas the municipality of Meaford has in excess of 72 volunteer events and organizations, and whereas the municipality of Meaford has a loyal, capable, and dedicated volunteer base that contribute valuable time and skills, saving organizations money and boosting the local economy. And whereas the municipality of Meaford has the opportunity to provide monetary support to maximize the economic impact of these events. And whereas volunteerism makes a positive difference in volunteers' lives, improving self-esteem, confidence, and well-being. And whereas the municipality of Meaford has recently hired a community engagement coordinator, now therefore be it resolved that the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee recommend to council that the municipality of Meaford consider allocating budgetary resources for events in the 2026 budget.
is there a seconder for the motion? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Open to the floor. Kelly?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. I have a question about the wording. It seems like it's very volunteer driven and the intent of generating a pool of volunteers, but the last line mentioned just funding the events. So I wondered if you could provide some clarity on that thinking.
With respect to the volunteers, yes, I'm trying to show the impact of volunteers and what it means to this community. Being party to a couple of organizations and seeing in also my previous experience, this community is very high in volunteerism. So that's the reason why the emphasis is there. And then the other, with respect to the events at the end, would be to give the economic development area some funding for these events in view of the fact that just recently with Christmas on the Bay, looking for the memorandum of understanding, what we were requesting was well at $11,000.
Evelyn,
I think it's a great idea that we're on, but I struggle with what are the critical things that this committee should be looking for funding for. So to me, the community, we have a community fund that organizations apply for, am I not right? And so I assume, I don't know if that money for Christmas on the Bay is coming from that, but I think the only problem I have with your recommendation is, like, I'd like to see money, if there's any money to be had, that we start doing things that are very strongly focused on bringing investment into this community and focusing on broader economic development initiatives. It seems to me we find it easier to get our head around specific events and those kinds of things, which I think from my perspective regarding economic development, if we keep focusing on those things and never focusing on the broader issues, on what really will improve economic development in this community, I guess that's where I have my difficulty with funding. And so I don't know if we can reword it, that the funding be made available, but it not be economic development funding, but that it's funding that's already there and they would have access to manage it or something.
Michael, go and Shirley.
So the reason I'm okay with the resolution as Ron drafted it is just because I do think it's drafted in a pretty respectful way to say that the council consider. I mean, yet we don't have any control. That's who balances, the actual sort of legislative body here has to make decisions about whether it goes here or it goes there. Simply putting a little oar in the water to say, consider this. So I get that would be one of the balancing things people would think about, but I think it's kind of appropriate to give them a little nudge.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I think I can maybe share a little bit of how this came about. When Christmas on the Bay came and requested the MOU, we came to a recognition that these events, whether it's, this one or Scarecrow or Summerfest, or, there's a dollar figure attached. There's an expense to the municipality for what is required of us for these events, whether it's putting cones out or providing staffing or, closing roads, picking up garbage, whatever is needed, there's a cost to that. And those costs in the past have really just been coming out of the operations budget without having a separate budget line, so that we have an understanding of what the cost of these, not all 72 events are going to require municipal resources, but many of them do. And we've never really had an understanding prior to this of what that cost is. So it was really quite eye-opening to find out that what's done for Christmas on the Bay is $11,000. And I thought, well, it can't be any less than that for Scarecrow, Christmas parade and all the rest of it. So we just need to understand, being responsible for taxpayers' dollars, where these funds are going, what's required, and just getting it all really tied down. So I know that our CAO is intending to put a budget line in this year that will identify the cost for, you know, the events that are supported and resourced by the municipality. But it has been again, an eye-opening process just these last few weeks with Christmas on the Bay.
Evelyn?
That explanation is helpful because it sounds more like a clarity on budget and how resources are being spent. So that's to me not quite the way that came out, but if that, I have no trouble supporting that. If it's clarifying that it's going to require staffing resources and that kind of, and it's a budgeting thing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ron?
If I may, Mr. Chair, yes, Evelyn, I think it's a job cost effort that is being handled now where labor that's incurred is allocated to events, materials that are incurred and various things that happen in parades. And the other issue that you mentioned with respect of long-term investment, I look in this community right now. Initially, all we have is these events that maximize tourism in a market. But I agree with you, long-term, we should be looking at investment opportunities.
Thank you. What I'll jump in on there is, so interestingly, and I agree 100%, and I know the infrastructure aspect is paramount. I've had conversations with CAO Everett about economic development overview, sky high, big picture. He's also great in agreement on the fact that it's got to be involved with infrastructure development, et cetera, et cetera. You actually look up the definition of municipal economic development, and it does talk about infrastructure development, planning and implementation, business support, tax incentives, business improvement, workforce development, but it also headlines tourism development. Because while we have to look at investment ready property, business support mechanisms, we can't lose sight of the fact that tourism is still a very large component of what our community does, with the amount of events we do, with that's what brings a lot of people in here. We're supposed to be a 4-season playground, so tourism should be part of that conversation. The only thing, Ron, that I wondered about that motion, the last line, literally it says municipality of Meaford consider allocating budgetary resources for events in the 2026 budget. What if it said for tourism in the 2026 budget? Because that is all encompassing. It doesn't dovetail it to or limit it to events specific. So when we talk about the costing analysis of things like putting out the banners, all the staffing resources we need to close the roads, all those things should be coming under the auspice of tourism dollars, because they're all related to things that are happening that kind of come under that auspice. So to me, that might be a way of, instead of specifically doing that, because I can only speak personally, but I know that in the 2026 budget, I would want to see, from a council perspective, a tourism line in there, which we don't really, I think, pay enough attention to or allocate enough resources to. So to me, this draft, based on the parameters you've set out, with it being budgetary resources for tourism instead of events, kind of umbrella covers that. Thoughts?
Absolutely fine, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Just to add, Mr. Chair, in our current 2025 budget, if I remember my numbers, I believe there's $23,700 allocated to tourism, and the purpose of those funds is really just to keep the kiosk at Meaford Hall full of brochures and to cover staff time answering questions if people come into Meaford Hall to ask about where they should eat, stay, and all the rest of it. So there is no dedicated tourism budget as such, other than what is, you know, sort of included in the budgets for Jessica and Nisa. So defining that, I think, is not a bad thing, and allows us again to better understand how taxpayers' dollars are being invested. So I know that's a conversation that will come up when we look at the 26 budget.
Great.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't agree more. And I think that when our community vision is established and we know how important tourism is, how much we want to grow and in what direction, I think all of this kind of shakes out of the community vision. So I'm excited to hear that a visioning exercise has been started. I just hope that it broadens itself beyond council and staff to include the community.
That is definitely, this is not going to be done in a silo. This is definitely going to be broad community engagement, has to be. We don't have the comfortability of doing that, or really the authority. We really need the public input, so that will be taking place. So I'm not sure as chair I can really make that amendment.
I'll leave it. And move in second here and think it's friendly.
Right.
So,
Okay, so seconded by Reed.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I just got this motion in front of me
Sure.
for the first time. I did not have it prior to the meeting.
Sure.
So I'm not really sure where the changes are. I don't have it here.
Sure.
I just have it on paper.
There's one word that's going to change.
Okay.
correct. I'll move that the motion made from the table. The amendment change where it is.
Sure.
May I ask, Mr. Chair, that the motion be shared with all of the members of the committee because I don't have it either.
I need a seconder for the motion.
Reed was seconder for the amendment.
I just
Kelly?
have a discussion point on the amendment, and I'm wondering if it should say tourism activities. So as to differentiate from the current activity of just having the apple.
If it's not too in one, I'll change my amendments to include that. 5 seconds. Stop.
One, events replaced with tourism activity, Sue.
Mr. Chair, I apologize for not having copies for everyone, and Jess is going to get us
Thank you
copies
very
right now.
much.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be difficult and I apologize because following through on Kelly's thoughts, the bulk of the motion is speaking to events and then we're switching to tourism. So I'm just wondering, because we're feeling a little bit rushed with this, if we should rework this a little bit and bring it back to our next meeting, because there's still lots of time on September the 17th before we would be discussing or finalizing our budget. So there's time
Sure.
that we could, rather than trying to rush and reword this and then it not be quite what we want when we get it to council. That would be my recommendation.
Ron,
I can withdraw my motion then, Mr. Chair.
still pass that around, Jessica.
Okay.
Thank you. So you're off the hook, Sue. We will withdraw the motion and we will when we have the agenda setting meeting for the September meeting, we will make sure it gets on the agenda for discussion at that point.
Through you, Mr. Chair, do you want me to put it in as a notice of motion?
Yeah, that would be. Okay, is there anything else on that volunteer discussion? If not, I will move to committee inquiries. Are there any inquiries at the table? Seeing nothing. All right, communications. The committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments, thoughts, or concerns with members of the committee, the public can send an email to clerk@meaford.ca. When emails are received to this email address, they will be compiled into a correspondence list, which is then distributed to committee members prior to the meeting. The cover sheet of this list will be included on each meeting agenda. The contents of the correspondence list are not included on the public agenda to protect the privacy and personal information of those residents who choose to send in their thoughts and comments. The next meeting currently is scheduled for September 17th. And if there's nothing else, then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.